introduce this lovely lady, Christina Hug. She is the founder of BoardingPass. She even runs a really cool community retreat in a chateau in Normandy. You can ask her about that later because she doesn't have time to tell you in her 7 minutes. Christina, please, welcome to the stage.
Hi. Thank you. Hello, hot take. So I'm here to talk about this question, which has become somewhat of an obsession of mine. Because how often have you been to an event or an experience and everything is seemingly perfect? Everything runs on time, the snacks are great, the tote bag is just the right size. And you leave thinking, it was fine, polished, forgettable. So how do we design to go beyond fine and make something meaningful, something real? And that's what I'm going to talk to you about now, because after a decade and a half of gathering humans, designing experiences, and building community, I have realized that a very humbling epiphany, that connection and transformation do not just live in logistics. And I love a good run of show. It's actually from something entirely different, and that is awe. And with awe, I don't mean big wow moments and pyrotechnics. I mean events that are anchored in purpose, that weave awe into the design, and that elevate connection. And I know it's somewhat confusing to have awe within awe, but it's all going to come together, I promise you. Anchor in purpose, you're thinking, great, obvious first step. I can do this. This is what we're told is our guidepost, is our foundation, is the thing that we ground all our decisions in. And to me, the anchor isn't just about the grounding. It's about the hook. It's about the part that latches onto something, the connection point. So often, we make our purpose statements like mission statements. It's this thing for these people to do this outcome. And I would always get stuck here. I would put in some robotic Mad Libs of a purpose statement, and then I would never look at it again. The hook is in the emotional resonance. The why are you there? Why are you showing up in the first place? And not just for you, for the people in the room. I'll give an example. I run a retreat called Community Council, which is a group of community leaders coming together in a chateau in Normandy to talk about the messy nuances of community building together. When I first started, I thought that the purpose was a retreat for community leaders to level up and unlock their challenges. Woo! It's fine, but it doesn't make you feel anything. The hook is about, if you also struggle with this and you're trying to find your hook, here are two things that I do to go deeper. The first is the why does that matter test. The why does that matter test has you take your original purpose and ask, why does that matter? 3 to 5 times. And then you read through your answers and you think, well, if all of that is true, what is this actually about? So for Community Council, we went from this to it's actually about building a peer advisory board for you to turn to throughout your career. And the reason for that is that our answers were this. It gets lonelier as you specialize. You can't build community when you're in an echo chamber, and if you're the one who's always holding space for others, you need a space that holds you too. This feels different. It gives you something to react to. You either need it or you don't. Which brings us to the second test, the dinner party test. And here is where we ask, if your attendees or your community members were to talk about you at a dinner party, about the things you're building for them, what would they say? And is your purpose specific, unique, and emotionally resonant enough that they would even bring it up? And if they did, would it spark a real conversation? I wholeheartedly believe the first purpose I gave you for Community Council wouldn't even make it to the table. Or they would talk maybe about the chateau. The second one, I imagine a reaction of, oh, I need one of those for my industry. Or a conversation around support systems, mentorship, and belonging. This is the power of the hook. Your anchor doesn't work if it doesn't have something to latch onto. And it's not about what you're doing, it's about why they're showing up. So once you have a purpose you can anchor in, the next part is to bring it to life. How do you go from understanding to experiencing? I participated in the College of Extraordinary Experiences last year. It's a gathering in Poland at a castle. Yes, I have a type. And this was my greatest lesson in wonder and awe. Because when we got there, we were sorted into houses, given cloaks and ties. We knew when meals were, but the rest was a mystery. At night, you might find yourself in a candlelit room with a phone asking you to whisper in your hopes for the future. You might encounter a masked woman in the hallway who says, "What do you need right now?" Who reemerges with a book given to you as if it were a prescription. You might find the bartender who's in the dungeon putting together bespoke tinctures based on your greatest desires. But the key here is that you might. Before I came to this experience, after coming to this experience, I realized that previously I was approaching design as a quite mechanical approach. Choose your own adventure, as long as you choose these 5 things that I've set out and talked about all the contingencies and possibilities that could go wrong, and I know what's going to happen. At the castle, what I said, which door I opened, shaped the experience. No 2 paths was the same, and that was the point. They had a mantra of LOMO, love of missing out, which meant that wherever you were was exactly where you were meant to be. They knew that wonder was not in the plan, but in the possibility. So my question here for organizers is, what can you let go of? How can you move from attendance to participation and make sure that people don't feel like they're just putting one foot in front of the other on a predefined path until the experience is over? How can what they choose shape what unfolds in front of them? This one's fun because everyone thinks I'm going to talk about who's in the room to connect with, where in fact some of my deepest connections have happened because of what was in the room. It's why my favorite networking events happen in art galleries, because hey, what do? It turns into, do you think if we squint we'll see a sailboat? Full disclosure, I never saw one of those as a kid. But you have to give them something to talk about. And one of my favorite examples of this is a workshop I participated in with Odyssey Works that I remember as the 5 things exercise. I'm sure they had a better name for it. But you're sitting in a pair, and your partner had to describe 5 objects to you, either on them, in the room, or something back home. And it was your job to unlock their stories. I learned more about Mehi from Barcelona, who's a dentist who runs unconventional events for other dentists, by talking about my favorite pen and his Vitamix than anyone else in that program. And that's the key. If you want them to go deep, give them something to explore. Because connections aren't formed through forced conversations, they're formed by designing for discovery. So if we go back to this original question, I'm actually going to push us to go a step further and not just aim for connection. Aim for meaning, for memories, for impact. And design experiences that anchor in a purpose people can feel, that weave in wonder that they can't predict, and that elevate the ways that we come together. Thank you.